What's up, guys? Isaac Landis, Isaac Adopts, and we have this new episode. I have brought the lovely Eli with me to talk about her experience of being adopted. With this channel, I'm trying to bring, some people on to have their experience. I know a lot of you guys did get my experience on it, so I'm going to be bringing people on. So, yeah, Eli, tell the people, where you're from and, how old were you when adopted and your experience on that.
All right. So I'm Eli. I was actually adopted when I was 3 years old. I was born in Florida, but I was adopted from Georgia, and then I moved to Maryland, and then I moved to Mississippi, and then back to Maryland, and now I ended up in PA with this lovely man.
Nice. Yeah, PA. Now, how old were you when you found out you were adopted?
I was actually pretty young when I found out. I was about 6 or 7 when I actually found out I was adopted. My parents actually wanted it known from the very beginning. That way, when I got older, it wasn't like this big thing. And, because a lot of people do get upset when they find out later on in life that they're adopted.
Right.
So my parents just thought that at a younger age, it would be best to know.
Right.
But I was actually also adopted by family, so it was a little different.
Right. And see, that's the difference with me and, the channel knows and the people that watch his videos and stuff that I put out that, I found out, like, I was thinking, I look at me, look at my parents, I'm like, wow, we're a different color. Because, my parents are, white and stuff like that. So that's cool. Like in your case, you kind of just knew because you had family that was already kind of adopted you and, you could tell, like, oh, they wouldn't know unless they said, hey, you're not our family or not, unless you, like, look totally different. But, how
yeah,
genetics go.
absolutely.
So, but, yeah, what was when you found out that you were gotten, like, put up for adoption, like, how did that make you feel, like, inside? Like,
honestly, at first, it was, the usual questions, why was I put up for adoption? Why didn't my actual family want me?
right.
The usual, at least at first it was like a little hurt. But my adoptive parents always made it known that, it was for the best. Things, just happened that, sometimes your mom and dad couldn't, like, take care of you in the way they wanted to.
Right.
But as the years went on, it was a little different. I actually did start building resentments because of the fact that, my parents didn't want me. And then when my birth parents, put me up for adoption, it wasn't because they didn't want to take care of me or anything. It was like because they actually couldn't. Both of my birth parents actually went to jail.
Oh,
So
wow.
I was put up for adoption because I had nobody else to take care of me.
Right. And, that's the thing with my parents. It's like, my parents now actually met my birth parents when they actually came to the adoption age. I guess, my parents, spiritually, like, prayed about, like, oh, she had a kid because my mom actually had, like, a miscarriage. And then they get to the adoption agency. They're like, hey, there's this lady, she's like 24. And, I think she already had a kid. Like, my sister, I actually have a birth sister that's out there. And they're like, hey, they're looking for someone to adopt out this baby,
Yeah.
So then, my parents named me. My birth mom was like, oh, that's, Isaac, that's a good name, this and that. And after at the adoption agency, she had a choice to be like, oh, do you keep it open? Because it was like an open adoption still. Like, you want to still write us? Like, my parents weren't like, no, this is our kid. You can't have anything to do with Isaac or anything like that. But I still almost had a resentment myself because when she moved back to Philly and went back to New Brunswick, New Jersey, my parents told me that they're like, well, have Isaac look me up when he's 18. I'm 31 now. That's kind of, years past that. I kind of tried but never came up with any luck. But I know the feeling with that because it's like, if, they really cared, then why couldn't you just send a letter? Why couldn't you just call and check in there? So, like, the whole resentment thing is, and I feel like that kind of led me, in another video I talked about where I kind of went wrong in life and, that kind of abandonment, I had that feeling to myself where it was like, damn, like, this is like no one cares, but my parents did care, at a young age. It's just looking at it at that point of view, it's just like seems very realistic.
Oh yeah.
So, did you ever try looking for your birth parents or?
So that's actually a funny story because when I was younger, and even to this day, I'll fully admit, I'm a very nosy person. Like, I do. I have to know everything. Like, I will
Right.
ask you point blank period questions that normal people wouldn't normally ask you.
Right.
But when I was younger, I had been snooping through my mom's stuff. Like, just being a little bratty kid.
Right.
And I had found, like, actually an old photo album of me when I was young, like, and still with my birth mom.
Oh wow.
There was pictures of me at the zoo and with my birth family and all my siblings. But along with that photo album, I had actually found a letter that my birth mom had written my adopted mom. And I was young, so of course I didn't like fully understand the letter. But I read it, and it was just like, this. It actually brought up more feelings because of the fact that my adopted mom had never shown me the letter. She had never been like, hey, your birth mom wrote you, like, this is what she said. I had to find out on my own that
Right.
she was, in contact with my adopted mom.
Right.
And I had gotten really upset about it, and I got really detached from my adopted mom. Now, me and her were never actually really close, but this kind of just like pushed me away even more. And so like reading that, I was like, okay, once I get older and actually, can do things on my own, yeah, I'm gonna like try. So when I was 17, I was living in Mississippi, and
Down
my
south.
my adopted mom, sorry, had kicked me out, and I moved back to Maryland with my other mom. Now I was adopted by a lesbian couple. So
How was that?
that was actually pretty interesting because growing up,
That's different.
people or like kids in school, they were always like, well, how were you born if you have two moms?
Right.
And, well, are you gay because your parents are gay? And I'm like,
Right.
there were just all these questions that as a kid, I didn't know how to answer.
Right. Right.
But then they're like, well, did your parents ever push this, being gay on you, like tell you? No, they didn't. Now, I am pansexual, so am attracted to females and males. But it's not even about gender. That's a whole nother story. But it was interesting growing up with two moms because then, for Father's Day, what do you do for Father's Day?
Right.
In school, your teachers have you like do all these crafts for Father's Day, and I was always the kid that was like, well, I don't have a dad, so what do I do? But my teachers did always try to make it as normal as possible for me.
Right. Right.
They're like, oh, well, you can still do it and just address it to your other mommy. And I'm like, okay, that works. I did get picked on a little bit for having gay parents. Now, it wasn't like, my feelings don't get hurt like very easily. So having them pick on me didn't really bother me.
Yeah.
But after a certain amount of time, it is like, well, why couldn't my parents be normal? Why couldn't I have a mom and a dad? But I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change any of it. Like, I love my parents. We don't have the best relationship, but of course I still love them. But them being gay has nothing to do with how I was raised. It has nothing to do with, the fact that I am attracted to girls. Like, they still want me to be who I am for me.
Right.
So,
And the thing is with that, excuse me. See, when I was in school, people would be like, "Oh, you kind of sound different. Like you act different." I'm like, as in they were saying that because your parents might have been like different genders. Doesn't seem like really traditional of the American American society and all that. So me having like a Caucasian parents, they're like, "Oh, you sound different. You don't know how to you suck at basketball and you do different sports and all that and because I like doing motocross and skateboard and all that stuff back then, and they were just making a big deal. And I feel like eventually, like looking back at it, like that could possibly have put like some kind of like toll in me because when you kind of hear stuff so many times, it's like, oh, you're this, and you're that.
Yeah.
It kind of can take a toll on you. But I'm sure like growing up with like two of the same gender, that probably was could be hard because the kids like, oh, you don't have a dad. When you, like I said, the Father's Day stuff, it's like, oh, who do I write this one out to, or like who seems like that male father figure, like who's going to really be there to play that part. And it could have been like confusing, but but I guess they had the love for you and all that stuff, so that kind of helped out. Now, when was the last time you talked to them?
So I actually have not
Excuse me.
spoken to my adopted parents in a couple of years. My one adopted mom, she like sends me a card and a check for my birthday every year, but I kind of lost connection with them because I actually had gotten engaged very young. I was 18, and my parents split when I was in 7th grade. That's why I had moved to Mississippi. My one mom took me and all my siblings down to Mississippi while my other mom stayed up here.
Right.
So when my mom in Mississippi had kicked me out, I came back up to Maryland to live with my other mom. And so then I lost that connection with my mom in Mississippi because, it was like a betrayal, to her. It was me not wanting, to have that relationship with her, but I had a better relationship with my other mom. So it was like kind of a mess. So that's when I really lost my connection with her. Now, after I had gotten engaged, she did come up to see me one time for my birthday, took me out to breakfast, and like we just hung out. We went and got my brother, and the three of us hung out. So that was nice, but I haven't actually talked to her since then. And now my mom in Maryland, I have not spoken to her since I moved out of her house when I got engaged.
Now, who is, sorry to cut you off.
No, you're good.
Who's the brother? Now, who's that? Your brother related to your people that were in Maryland or the?
Yeah, so he's my adopted brother.
Okay, so it's a
I
kid,
actually
biological.
I have 6 adopted siblings, and then I have 8 birth siblings.
Okay.
So, my adopted siblings, like I said, they had moved to Mississippi with me and my one mom. But the same thing happened. My mom in Mississippi kicked him out too. So he came back up north and started living with my other mom.
Right.
Now, I'm not blood related to him, but I do have 2 adopted siblings that I am blood related to. And that is actually a really complicated story. I don't know if you want to talk about that on here, but
Keep YouTube friendly.
well, I mean, it is YouTube friendly, but it's it's long and complicated, and
We'll also bring one back because
but yeah.
continuance of this segments.
But yeah, so he is actually one of my adopted brothers who is actually still currently living in Maryland.
Right.
With my other mom. He's a year older than me. But after I had moved out of my mom's house in Mississippi, me and him actually became really close. And I was never really close with any of my siblings. But the older we got, it was like that was when we became closer because it was like we started to understand each other more and started to have more things in common.
Right.
Some of them not too good, like the common stuff, but other things like our friends, we had mutual friends and we just like to do the same stuff. And we actually have a pretty decent relationship now. I don't talk to him very often because I do try to kind of distance myself because I don't want anybody to like feel a certain type of way or come at me for like, oh, well, you didn't want to live with this mom and you didn't want to live with this mom and then you just left us too, like we're your siblings, because I've heard all of it before. So I kind of keep my distance now, but he is the closest sibling I have. And he actually just texted me the other day, which I was honestly surprised, but I was happy.
Well, that's good. That's good.
Yeah.
What would you say would be like the best moment, the best reason that you think that you're happy for being adopted versus not being adopted? Like what would make you be grateful for being adopted?
Honestly, I will say that I am so grateful I was adopted because knowing who my birth parents are and what they did, I know that if I would have stayed with them, I would not have had as good of a life as I did growing up. It was just something that I always knew, of course I wanted to know who they were and get to know them and everything, but I also knew deep down that I would not have survived. Honestly, I'm going to use the word survived.
Yeah.
I would not have survived living with them.
Oh, wow.
I would be in a worse position than I am in now. And I mean, I'm not that I'm in a bad position, but the stuff I've been through, which you know about, I just know it would have been 10 times worse if I would have stayed with them.
Yeah, and that's and that's good. You can realize that like you don't like we're like, oh, I just don't want to I don't care about like who me being adopted, and like I'm not grateful for this. So it's like you see like a light at the other end of the tunnel that you're appreciative that, hey, I'm adopted. Because I'm not gonna lie, there was a couple of times where it's like, oh, I'm adopted, like I feel like I don't fit in. But
Yeah.
that was on my end, that's false, because I'm highly grateful that I was adopted, and making the best. Now I'm just gonna say no one's perfect. I'm not perfect. Been through
I'm
stuff.
not perfect.
I'm gonna bring some stuff. Through my life that I've been through and stuff. But the best part, take away from this is that if anybody that's been adopted and that might not know their birth parents, go out there, look for it. There's actually like a good reason, if they couldn't keep you because if they were too young, or their parents didn't want them having a kid, or there was financial reasons, a whole bunch of stuff, and that could take like a mental toll out. Because I know probably my birth mom is like probably thinks about me every day. If she's still alive and doing well, if she's went to New Brunswick, New Jersey. So I think about that like most of the time. It's like she wanted to keep me, but she couldn't. And and I think I actually had a birth sister. I'm gonna probably have my mom talk more about that too, because it was kind of like she went with this guy, but didn't want to know like about me or something. So it's like a whole nother story, that I'll share with you guys and stuff like that. So
More complications, guys.
yeah. So, but no, I appreciate it. I really appreciate you coming out, giving the people your story. I do want to have more people to this platform, and I can people come on YouTube and feel like, oh, how do I deal with adoptions? Is that one of these videos will pop up and people will be like, oh, you know what? Isaac comes from a different, unique family and stuff that's, it's different, culturally different, ethnicity different, but I still, feel like to say to me, I still have a good life, because there's always people that could be in the worst situations than what we are in,
Yeah, family is not always blood.
Right.
Guys, like it is the people you surround yourself with, the people who support you and take care of you when you need it. Family is everything. And just because, we're adopted and we don't have, our birth families in our lives, or you may have your birth family in your life and that's completely your choice, but it's not always a bad thing to be adopted because you find family wherever, you feel loved.
Yes. And that's true, Do you want to tell them where they can find you? Like if you have Instagram, Facebook, plug your stuff in?
Yeah, so I actually have all of that. I have Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, whatever you guys, if you have any questions or you just need somebody to talk to. I will have Isaac put it also in the description. But my Facebook is just my first and last name, Eli Morel. Kind of spelled like the Merrill shoes, spelled the same way. My Instagram is at the Muppet Baby with the E as a 3. Yeah, like I said, I'll have Isaac put it in the description just so in case you guys have any questions or you just need to talk to somebody or you want to know something that we didn't talk about in this video.
Yes.
I know people have a lot of questions and everything, so yeah.
Yep. Like she said, it will be in the description. I'll plug everything up. We will bring her back. It's the first time us, collabing on this, and you will be seeing more of Eli. So, guys, stay safe. Have a good day.
You want to show off of?
Yeah, I definitely should.
Just that way, like.
Yeah, I'm just adding something
I
around
know.
behind the scenes.
Right, but just like that way, you can have the questions already out there. That way, it's like not put on the spot of, well. This is the question I'm asking you, and because it does take me a minute to like
come out with the answer and stuff like that. But you were pretty quick on about that too, so you did come on the fly pretty quick.
Yeah, I was like, okay, bet.
Right.
And it's honestly nice because a lot of the questions that were asked wasn't like random questions that I haven't been asked before.
Right,
so
right,
it's
right.
Like nice to, I actually have answers for them instead of just being like, like.
Right. And I'm pretty, it's like almost like, even like when I used to do music, I'm like, oh, people write stuff down. Like I freestyle it off the head. Like I'm good at freestyling it and stuff.
Yeah.
But you're right. I need to write stuff down, even though, writing's my favorite thing to do. Just like step work stuff.
Like, write it down. Just, like go over it beforehand of what
We can
you
do
know
that.
what you're going to be talking about, because like honestly, a lot, like I said, a lot of the stuff we already went over, like I've already been over with a bunch of people, but then there are like the deeper questions that, like how did I feel about it? Because I don't, people don't like to ask, how do you feel about something, or how did this affect you?
Right.
They just want to know, well, how were you born with two moms? How was this? How was that? Like,
Right.
but yeah, I mean, that was fun. I like doing that.
Thank you. Yeah.
So we'll definitely have to do this again.
Yes, we will. Take care, guys. Behind the scenes, Isaac Landis adopted. Adoption talks. Hey.